If I were to take a survey in this room, talk to everyone in the room, and ask you what this is, I'd get a lot of the same answers. I mean, I would get, it's a can of soup, it's Campbell's soup, stuff along those lines. Now, if I were to ask you the same question about this, it would probably be variations on that same theme. I mean, there would be some differences. I would probably get, it's a painting of a can of soup, it's a picture of a can of soup, maybe it's a Warhol soup can, but we would identify these as similar things. Here's what's interesting, though. Here's the mathematical fallacy of that. I bought this can of soup today on my way down here, and it cost me $1.25. This can of soup I did not buy, but it did sell at auction a few years ago for $24 million. Let that math soak in for a second. $1.25, $24 million. So what is the difference? Why that wide swing? Well, this can of soup is something that has value. This can of soup is something that has worth. This can of soup, its fate is probably to be my lunch. This can of soup is an iconic image from maybe the most important artistic movement of the last 40 years. It's important. Value versus worth. Value for this soup was determined by what is probably a very simple equation. Something like materials, paper, carrots, whatever, plus manpower, what it took to have someone put it together, plus the markup so that they could keep the soup business alive. That's not an equation that you can use with this painting. Materials. This was painted in the mid-'60s. It is, in actuality, a very big painting, so maybe the materials cost Warhol $25. Manpower. Warhol called his studio the factory, and that was because he employed sort of industrial methodology to producing art. I mean, there's a good chance that this painting was started and finished in a matter of days. So manpower, not $24 million worth of manpower, right? But what it has going for it is its worth. And its worth comes from how people connect to it. They connect to the idea of it, to this idea of taking something mundane, everyday, can of soup, and elevating it to high art. They respond to the aesthetic of it, the brightness of the colors, the graphic line of it, the scope of it, because it is, as I said, a very big picture. That gives it worth. Worth exceeds value. Creativity, I believe, should be measured in worth over value. Look, I am a creator. It's how I make my living, primarily as a writer. And when I start on a project, invariably, the first question I will be asked is, what will this cost? And 20 years in, 25 years in, it's a question I still find very difficult to answer. I mean, there are equations that I try to sort of throw in there. How long will a project take me? How much research is there? How much travel? Whatever. But that really only gets me in the ballpark. And in the end, it's sort of based more on how I feel about the project. Will it be fun? Do I like the people I'm doing it for? Do I like the possibilities of it? And perhaps most importantly, will this project have worth? Is this something that I feel like I can do and people will engage with it. You know, it's important to remember that there is no stock market for creativity. You know, there's no ticker tape that says young adult novels are up 5 points today, Victorian architecture continues its 100-year slide. I mean, it's, you know, we can't measure creativity in that kind of way. It just doesn't work out. We really have to talk about worth. You know, over the course of my career, I have had the good fortune to work with a lot of different kinds of people, lots of different kinds of businesses, lots of different kinds of artists, rock bands, restaurant owners, captains of industry, small business owners, all kinds of people. And for me, the most interesting have been people in the medical profession. And that is because, quite honestly, because they think very differently from me. You know, they're linear, results-oriented people. They do research, they are working toward a goal. But they understand this idea of worth. They just approach it differently. And here's what I mean, is when I am working on something, I ask the question, how? How will this work? How will this operate? How will people engage with it? I am a how guy. They are why people. Why people say, why did you make this choice? Why did you use this turn of phrase? Why are we using these colors or these graphics or this design? Why? Now, that sounds like a formula for a disaster. But in fact, it's really interesting because what we're doing is we are both looking for a way to talk about worth. We both want to know how will people connect to this idea. And that is really what's important. I mean, there is always going to be value assigned to things. We are, as a species, people who want to quantify. But when we are talking about creativity, when we are talking about ideas, the truth is we are never going to be able to accurately do that. And that's what makes worth so important. It's why when we look at something, at an idea, at a piece of art, at a piece of writing, we have to say, does this work? Does this operate? Do people engage with it? Do people connect with it? Because if we do not have that experience, if we do not have that process of feeling like we have connected to an idea, then these two soup cans have more in common than I would care to admit.